what is freestyle and Greco? Okay, so the whole world wrestles freestyle and Greco. They are the Olympic styles. It's what summer wrestling is. America is the only country in the world that wrestles folk style, what you see in high school and college. Freestyle and Greco it's literally the best. Hey guys, what's up? I'm Coach Jake. If you've never met us before, I'm the owner, founder of Ironclad Wrestling and Ironclad Methods. I'm here with my good friend, Michael Moran, who's a senior level official. Michael has officiated at every major event. He was a state champion wrestler himself. You really cared about the rules. You were incredibly professional, way beyond your years. And it's been awesome to watch your journey climb. So this is, if you haven't met Michael already, you're gonna see him on TV, you're gonna watch him on all the events that you watch if you're following Flow or Freestyle Greco stuff anywhere. He's incredible, he's very respected among the M1s and the most senior level officials. And he's also from our home state here. We're right here, Birmingham boys in Alabama.
Make us Bama boys look good.
Yeah, exactly. trying to represent, okay? If you're not familiar with Ironclad, we've been doing this a long time. We've also coached internationally, been to the Olympic Training Center. We've had successful athletes at every level. And if I can figure this out, you can too. I was honest enough to admit at some point that I didn't know enough about this. We realized that education is the barrier to it all, and we're trying to use our knowledge, experience, want to get rid of a lot of the objections or hurdles that might be in front of you in getting started. Let's dive in.
It's really, really tough to keep up with the rules, and even as an official, if you're going to high-level events, regular, most times, several times a year, like, it's tough to keep up because things change so fast, and things get passed through orally, so you'll hear one thing from one guy and a different thing from another guy, and it's just tough to keep everything straight.
It really is so painful. I love Freestyle and Greco season because it's like the funnest time of year. The rule set is so much more fun as an athlete and as a coach, as a fan. We want to help you love it, and that begins with education and understanding. The overarching theme here is that coaches, officials, athletes, parents, like, we're really all on the same team here, right? There's so much challenging the call, and the brick has helped that a little bit, right? If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a brick that you roll out. Sometimes they have crazy stuffed animals that you throw or something. But
all sorts of stuff at different events. Like, I've seen dice, I've seen stuffed animals.
Yeah, but you can, if you don't like a call, you can challenge the call. But a lot of times at local and regional events, there winds up being these arguments between coach and official.
Yeah, when we don't have video review.
Because there's not video review, right? And then it leads to it's us versus them kind of thing, or they're shouting because they think they're right, and you're just like, unfortunately, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That is not actually the rule, right? Have you had that experience?
Of course, I have that experience all the time. Like, there's this huge difference. I think one way I like to think about this, both freestyle, Greco, Folkstyle, whatever it is like there's different rule books, multiple rule books for every match. There's like 4 of them. There's the rule book that you find on USA Wrestling's webpage. There's the rule book in the official's head, the rule book as described by the wrestlers, and the rule book described by the coaches. And all of those are going to vary in slightly different ways. And when you get where you find unfairness is when some of those rule books differ from each other, whether it's the officials differing from the official rule book, or the wrestlers different from the officials, the coaches different from the wrestlers. Yes. And that creates misunderstandings, and people have a perceived unfairness. And in some ways, it's a real unfairness, because if a wrestler believes that he's going to score 4 points from this action, he does what he needs to do to commit that action. He gets it, and then he gets scored 4 for the other guy, or 2 for him, or
it's pretty upsetting.
It's pretty upsetting, right? Like,
yeah.
Even if that was the right call according to the rule book, if you were taught another way, and that's the standard that you're wrestling to, it's almost in a way unfair to the guy.
And the rules, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
yeah.
And the rules they've changed, right? Like, there's and so the things that used to be allowed that someone might be teaching an athlete is like, hey, that's actually not the rule anymore.
Yeah.
Folkstyle is highly rewards control. It's a control-based thing. It's very grappling-centric, where freestyle and Greco is fast-paced, explosive, and it rewards exposure. Just like the board game that you play at home or whatever else, there's a little bit to learn when you get started. You got to learn the rules, and as soon as you figure out the rules, you're going to really start having fun. Okay, if you're watching this, you probably already wrestle Folkstyle. If you're a freestyle person, you're going to understand what I'm saying when I say this, but Folkstyle is very objective. It's very black and white, where freestyle is very subjective. It's very gray. Okay, there's a lot of stuff left up to interpretation. At a high-level event, you're going to have 3 officials on every mat. Okay, so there's a referee on the mat, there's a judge on the far side of the mat, and then there's the mat chairman sitting at the head table for that mat. And the three of them work together to get the call right. Two of the three must agree, okay? And so for that reason, it's very important that you understand the vocabulary, what a lot of these terms are, what the nuances are inside the rules, because as a coach in the corner or an advocate for your wrestler, you almost have to operate like a lawyer at times to go up and negotiate with the referee and recap what just happened. And if you show up shouting and screaming at Michael and acting like a fool, you're gonna get thrown out of the tournament, okay? Don't get shamed or embarrassed, whatever else. That's what this is for, okay? So there are no ankle bands in Freestyle Greco tournaments, okay? You wear a red or a blue singlet. Bottom is blue. So when you look at the bracket, you say, hey, my name's on bottom, I'm wearing blue, top guy is red, bottom blue. Your Freestyle Greco match is gonna be 2 periods, not 3. It's 2 periods with a short break in between. In that break, you get a sip of water, they're gonna dry you off. The coach is gonna do some coaching. So it really makes it fun from a coach-athlete standpoint. You can make mid-match adjustments, go back out, wrestle second period. There's crazy amount of scoring in short amount of time. So we describe it as like make it, take it. You know, if you get to a hold, you can just keep scoring with that same hold. You don't have to let go and change the new hold. Freestyle, when you're on your feet, it's gonna look just like your folk style wrestling, except that the primary objective is to get exposure first, not takedown. I don't have to have the takedown to get back points first, okay? And so there's a little nuance there. There's also a push out rule, okay? But it's ultimately, it's 98% the same from your feet, okay? What do you need to be thinking about when you go to tournament? You need to be thinking always be on offense, right? Like always be attacking. The rule set's always gonna reward the person who's on offense, right? If 2 guys go out of bounds and it's questionable action, you're always gonna default to who created action. Is that?
Especially if you're unsure. But in default, you go with the offensive wrestling. And that's codified in the rule book as well. You see lots of situations where it's designed to benefit the offensive wrestler.
Over and over and over
more
again.
Action as a general rule.
The great strategy is going to be, we talk about treating the mat like it's a cone, right? Yep. So it's this table is a cone. We say get outside the 10-foot circle with your butt to the circle so that the other guy is always in the boundary along the edge. That 2-foot boundary along the edge of the mat is called the zone, right?
Zone.
Passivity zone. If my butt is on the edge of the 10-foot circle in the middle of the mat, then the other guy is within a step or two of being in the zone or out of bounds. And so red is controlling the center.
And that's a huge thing as well. Even if you're not only looking for a step out, that out of bounds line is really truly your friend in Freestyle and Greco. If you're the offensive wrestler, if you take a shot out of bounds or take a shot near the edge, once that defensive wrestler steps out of bounds, he can't counter.
Yes.
So if you're hitting a blast double or a head outside single and you're trying to double off, you can take that action to the edge and not worry about a 4-2 situation, where if that would have been 4-2 on the center of the mat, if you take it to the edge of the mat, you can get your 4, he rolls you through, it would have been 2, now you only get the 4 because that guy can't counter.
The defensive wrestler cannot score once you go out of bounds. Massive deal.
Massive deal. Huge thing for savvy wrestling when you guys start.
Yeah. If you know freestyle, then you're going to understand Greco. Greco is the same thing. Don't touch his legs. Don't grab his legs. Can't attack his legs. Don't defend by blocking legs. And we're going to explain that in greater detail. Where most of the difference happens is in top and bottom. Top and bottom is called parterre. Okay, that's the language. So when you get into parterre, the bottom guy's job is to go flat. He's trying to just not get turned over. He's going to go flat and spin. You got to survive 10, maybe 20 seconds. That's not the specific rule,
no,
but anecdotally, that's roughly what you're going to see. 10 to 20 seconds based on the action. Okay, the top guy can lock hands. That's a major difference. He's going to be allowed to lock hands, and every time he turns you over, he's going to get 2 points. He's going to break 90 degrees, scores 2 points for every turn that happens. Where in folk style, he's got to break 45-degree angle, and you have to hold for a 2, 3, 4 count to score. Freestyle, as soon as he breaks 90, you're going to score. If he rolls you over, he can just keep rolling like an alligator across the mat. He's going to score 2 points every time that happens. Where in folk style, if you tilt the guy up and you belly him out, you have to switch to a new hold. In freestyle, you don't. We say it's make it, take it, right? You get a great hold, roll him over as many times as you want to.
How many points is a tech in Freestyle Greco?
Great call. So a tech fall, technical superiority is going to be 10 points in freestyle. A 10-point margin is going to end the match, where in Greco it's going to be 8. Okay, so freestyle is 10-point tech falls. Greco is going to be 8-0. Hopefully not. Michael might tech fall me in some Greco, bro. So The other cool things is that no one is ever losing. There are criteria that happen, okay? And so we talk about some of the math and how that works out. A takedown is 2, an exposure is 2, a push out, if you push the person out of bounds, it's 1 point. They need to be under attack. You can't just like straight sumo wrestle them. Arms extended, that's not gonna count. It's the whole foot out of bounds, not stepping on the line. The whole foot goes out of bounds. And then there's a 4-point throw. So a takedown plus a turn is gonna be 2 plus 2 is 4. But if you go from feet to danger, you're gonna see a 4-point call, and that 4-point call is gonna be worth more than 2 plus 2.
Exactly.
So feet to danger, it rewards big action, exciting action. And so we always say that the 4 is kind of like 4.5. The only way to beat that would be a grand amplitude throw, which would be 5. You're going to see the referee award it like this here, okay? And that's kind of basically the logo that you see on USA Wrestling. How would you describe what is a 5-point action versus a 4-point action?
So a 5-point action is a grand amplitude throw that lands in danger. And grand amplitude is not defined in the rule book, much to our dismay.
We want to jump into some of the vocabulary and help you understand what a lot of those things are. What does the rule actually say? What is the criteria, which is very different than the indicator?
Correct.
A takedown and a turn is 2 plus 2. You've scored 4, okay? But there's also feet to danger,
Correct.
which is a 4-point action, but it's kind of a special thing where takedown plus turn is 4 points total, exactly. But feet to danger is worth 4 points, but 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4.
Yeah, it's girl
right?
math.
Yeah, it's girl. So if you feet to danger actually gives you a criteria advantage. There's a criteria component to everything, and so I always say it's like 4.5.
Yeah.
Like you're actually winning. If you throw me for 4 and I get takedown and turn, it's 4 to 4,
yeah.
But you're winning, right? And then there's also another criteria component where if you have a 4, I have a 4, but I scored last, yep. I'm winning.
Correct.
So 4-point move for you, 4-point move for me, second, I'm winning.
Yep.
4-point move for you, 2 plus 2, you're still winning. It's 4 to 4, right. But you're still winning, okay? And that's indicated on the scoreboard. It'll be lit up or whatever, or a dot by your name that'll say, this person has criteria.
And never trust it as a coach.
It's, oh my gosh.
So it's a big thing for coaches at any level. Even if you have video review, you're allowed to go up to the chairman and ask to confirm criteria.
If you're a coach or a corner person watching,
yep.
When you go to the table, you have to ask a question. You can't go up and start arguing. There's etiquette to it. You're only allowed to come up once,
yep.
Right? That's like your challenge, right? If you don't have a brick or a block. If you have a brick or block, you don't even approach the table. You just brick. However, you can ask for clarification.
Yes.
Hey, can I confirm criteria?
There are questions the coach is always allowed to ask, no matter the circumstance. Whether you have a brick, whether you don't have a brick, always allowed to ask, is time correct? What was confirmed? So you might see the judge throw up 2 and 2 and the whistle throw up 4. You need to know which one was confirmed.
What was confirmed?
That criteria. You can ask that. You can ask whether criteria is correct on the scoreboard.
Okay.
And what's the last one? I'm forgetting. There's a 4th one that I'm blanking on.
Okay.
It'll come to me eventually.
It'll come back in a minute.
Yeah.
The whistle makes a call. The judge makes a call. The chairman cannot make his own call. He has to confirm what one of these 2 people called.
He has to pick between those 2.
He has to pick one of the 2 and confirm A or B. He can't make his own call. Now, he can call a meeting. They'll stop action, come together, have a meeting, and say, hey guys, what really happened there?
And that's why we allow coaches to come up to the table and ask what was confirmed. And it's a lot to keep up with as a coach.
Yeah. So there's what's called a shot clock or forced parterre in Greco.
Yep.
Freestyle being shot clock. So first period, we get to a minute left in the first period. No one has scored. So they're going to start warning wrestlers. They're going to hand out, right? Make sure I'm doing the right thing. Okay.
And it depends which age group you are. You'll have warnings for passivity. So if you're 16 and under, so basically high school sophomores and below, you'll have no warning for passivity. If you get hit, you're directly onto the activity time in freestyle.
Meaning you have 30 seconds to score an offensive point.
Correct. Or your
a
opponent.
push out or takedown, an exposure, whatever. You have 30 seconds to score. If you don't score, then what happens?
Your opponent gets a point.
The opponent gets a point.
So in freestyle, you have a no warning in 16 and under. So at around 1 minute, you'll put straight on the clock. In 3-minute periods, you have a warning. So you'll get probably a warning around 45 seconds. Someone's going to go on the clock around 1 minute 30.
Yes.
In Greco, regardless of the style, you don't get a warning for passivity. you go straight to force parterre. And we call it force parterre. It's really, actually it's optional parterre, but it's optional for the guy who was more active.
Yes.
So in that case, it comes directly with 1 point. You don't get your 30 seconds to score to win.
You score a point immediately.
And the other guy gets a chance on top. He can decline it if he desires, but most people don't, because you have a much better opportunity to score on top than you do in standing and Greco.
One guy starts laying down, hands in the middle of the back, out to the side.
Yep. And that's so that's for the more active wrestler of the two.
So a way that we often describe this when we're talking to everyone is the guy who's scoring points has rights, right? Would that be fair to say?
Right. Passivity is, in opposition to something like stalling, passivity isn't the lack of an attempt. Passivity is the lack of scoring.
Yes.
And the way it's defined in the rulebook is not actually even as a penalty. It's defined as a tool of the officiating crew. The official definition here is passivity is a tool of the officiating crew to stimulate action. So that's all we're really looking to do with passivity. We're not looking to penalize stalling. We're not looking to penalize to give away free points just because you took a shot. We're looking to stimulate action, which is why you won't see passivity called in certain situations where you have a lot of points on the board. So if you're up 7-0 or you're up, or even if you're not up, if it's a close match, if it's 8-8, don't expect a passivity call.
Because there's been points on the board.
There are points on the board, the
Yeah.
referees are good, we don't need any more points. In that situation, you might have a fleeing the mat or a fleeing the hole type situation. That's more akin to a stalling late in the match situation like Folkstyle, where if you're fleeing away from me, you're not engaging, you're not allowing me to at least attack, you're going to get hit with a penalty point.
Negative wrestling, right?
Negative wrestling.
Passive. Yeah, you're going to hear guys yelling
Exactly.
passive.
And you won't get that passivity call. If you've got 5-6 points on the board, you can pretty much forget about passivity.
Yeah.
In most cases.
Passive would be kind of like your warning stalling, like perhaps, right? But like that penalty point that you would get that's like, hey, this is getting pretty serious. You're going to get like a fleeing the hold call.
So you'll get an attention first. If it's within if
Attention,
it's more than
attention.
15 seconds left in the match, you'll get an attention. Referee will stop it, kind of like a stall warning type
Yeah.
situation. Referee will say, hey, you're fleeing, attention, don't flee. If you continue to flee, you can get hit with a point. It's very
This is
rare.
going to be freestyle or Greco. You're going to get this
Yes.
type of, like,
This
hey,
applies-
attention.
This applies in both. They'll stop the
Yeah.
match, they'll tell you attention, fleeing, you stop fleeing. The big thing with fleeing the mat versus passivity as well is that there's a philosophical difference between Folkstyle and freestyle. In freestyle, or Folkstyle, excuse me, stalling is defined as a lack of an attempt to aggressively wrestle. So you are required as a wrestler in the match, whether you're leading by 10
In a
points,
Folkstyle
whether you're
match.
down by 10 points,
Yeah.
you are required to wrestle aggressively at all times. It's codified in the rulebook. Freestyle takes a much different approach. Freestyle is all about scoring, all about offense, all about action. The freestyle and international philosophy on this is that if you've scored, you have a right to not attempt to score.
Yep.
You don't have to continue to keep widening that gap if you're winning. You do have to continue to engage the opponent. So a huge thing for fleeing the mat.
You
is
have to
whether
make
you're-
yourself presentable.
You have to stay engaged. You have to maintain contact. As long as you're staying in the center of the mat, you're engaging your opponent. You don't have to take shots. Like in Folkstyle, you'll see a guy who's winning a match. He stays in the middle of the mat, but his opponent takes 3 shots and he takes 1. He's going to get hit for stalling. In freestyle, no big deal. You don't have to take a single other shot. As long as you're staying engaged and allowing your opponent an ability to wrestle and an ability to attack, you're good.
I think about Greco, like your chest being out of bounds. Like, hey, I'm trying to drive you out, and you turn and your chest is facing away.
Yes.
Like you're usually going to get hit for
Where's he
caution.
going?
Yeah.
Yeah,
where's he going?
yeah. You're going to hear people yelling. Yeah, where's he going? Where's he like?
It's
Because he's not by his chest facing out. He's not attempting to stay on the mat. And then also, if you're on your back and you're bridging and sliding out of bounds, right?
Yes.
And you use out of bounds to get off of your back.
Yes.
Then you're going to see it as well. You're going to see caution right away.
Yes.
And in that case, they would return to parterre, which is
It's a good point to mention that any caution that occurs in parterre, any foul that occurs, will return to parterre. If you're the defensive wrestler and you commit a foul, whether that's 2 hands on the head,
we're in a scramble on the mat, whatever
whether
else.
that's
And
fleeing, whether that's an illegal hold, anything you do, if you commit a foul in parterre, you'll get a caution in 1, and you'll return back down to parterre. You don't get out of parterre for that. And if you're in danger, so if
this
you're on
is
your
a
back,
very
potentially-
big deal. Yeah.
If you're on your back, if you're in danger when you commit that foul, whether that's 2 hands on the head or whether that's fleeing, it's caution in 2 points, and you return back to parterre again.
Yep. So what defines out of bounds?
Yep.
For standing, it's your whole foot being out of
Yes.
bounds. But on the ground, what defines out of bounds?
So there are 2 separate criteria for out of bounds in Freestyle Greco. The first is the standing criteria, in which a full foot touching out of bounds. That means you cannot be on the line. You have to touch the out of bounds line without, or touch the out of bounds area without touching the line. That is out of bounds. Your head touching is out of bounds in standing, or your entire pinning area. So if you're out of bounds, let's say you put 2 hands on the mat, your pinning area is out of bounds, you're out of bounds.
You're in quad pod.
You're in quad pod, you put both your hands on the mat, your entire pinning area is out, you're out.
Not your hands, your pinning area. So you hear people talk about the chest a lot.
Chest.
Like, hey, his chest is out of bounds.
And that's a perfectly fine way to think about it.
Yeah.
The pinning area is very similar from the front side to the chest. So that's perfectly fine to think about it that way. And if your head touches, you're out. So that's why you'll see guys lay their head down on the mat after a leg lace trying to get out of bounds. They get hit with caution, they go back down to parterre.
If there's not a reason, if I'm putting my head on the mat specifically to stop wrestling, then you're going to see that offered a lot, and
that's a big idea with any fleeing the mat call between Folkstyle and Freestyle. So in Folkstyle, like I said, it's very rare because it has to be an active attempt to get out of bounds during an imminent scoring situation.
I'm like crawling and reaching for the floor
and
or
even
something.
If you do that, if it's not during a takedown attempt, you get away with it, which is silly. In Freestyle, it's much more liberal. So anytime you refuse to make an attempt, an active attempt, mind you, to stay in bounds, you can get hit with fleeing. So even if you aren't looking to get out of bounds, you see this sometimes in standing where a guy just backs out of bounds. He never.
He's just not trying. No, he's not actively wrestling to get back in bounds.
If you circle kind of like a stalling by backing out, a back out stall in Folkstyle, if you just back right out of the bounds without making an attempt to circle, stay in bounds, you can get hit with a step out and a caution.
Yeah, you're going to see that one caution one a lot. Yeah.
You have a responsibility to stay in bounds in Freestyle that you don't have in Folkstyle.
Okay, so caution. When you get caution, you're allowed to. Third caution is going to end the match every time.
Any 3 cautions in the match.
3 cautions are going to end the match, except in Greco, which is like a defensive leg foul. 2 is going to get it done.
Yes,
right.
And that's an important distinction you made there. Defensive leg foul, you only get 2.
Versus
offensive leg foul, you can have your 3 normal cautions. In addition to, you can also have your first offensive leg foul is only an intention. So if you, like we talked about earlier,
whatever, I grab your leg or whatever.
You grab the leg, you get an intention.
Or a trip or something, whatever else. Hey,
they cancel a scoring action, so you can't score with it, you get an intention. Future offensive leg fouls are cautioned in 1 point. Defensive leg fouls are cautioned in 2. And that goes back to
stopping action.
Action.
Who initiated, what happened.
And that actually extends beyond just leg fouls in Greco. Any offensive foul in Greco is 1 point. Any defensive leg foul is 2.
Yes.
So that goes back to the idea we talked about earlier of the rule book really pushing to benefit the offensive wrestler.
Okay, let's talk about a couple other things that are cautions.
Yeah.
So in both Freestyle and Greco, you cannot have 2 hands on the head.
Correct.
So that means 2 hands on top of the head. One that we get hit with all the time, we call it a head vice, some people call it a viper lock, is head and chin. Are you going to get an attention or is it immediately going to be a caution?
So it goes back to the same thing as before. So an offensive foul, any offensive foul, Freestyle, Greco, doesn't matter, you get an attention first. So in that situation, if you are, let's say, on top and bottom and you go for...
but you lose the position.
You lose the position. So if you commit a foul in parterre, as the offensive wrestler, you get an attention and you come back up to your feet. You don't get to continue that action in parterre. Whereas as the defensive wrestler, if you commit a foul, you go straight to a caution, you don't get your attention first, and then you return back down to parterre as the defensive guy.
If you haven't picked this up already, knowing the rules and the criteria is such a big deal because there's so much strategy happening as an athlete. It's really fun for coaches because as a coach, you're in the corner, you have the ability to help guide your athlete and make good decisions, right? We always talk about the value of decision making in matches and how important that is, and that's so extremely true in folk style, but you really see this in freestyle and Greco as well. I would say it's 10x in freestyle Greco, the decision making that happens because a match can change so quickly.
Yeah. Yep.
Other things that we see that happen with, so 2 hands to the head, scissoring the body in any way, like legs around the body, scissoring the body or the head is going to be illegal.
An interesting application that most people think about is that leg cradles are also illegal in freestyle.
Yes.
And obviously Greco, but
so simply like leg riding, 2 legs in is an example of that, right?
If your legs touch, you're scissoring the body, that is illegal.
And so you can't have the legs in at all in Greco, but even in freestyle, if you start crossing your ankles, they're going to stop it and put you back up. Other things, you can't step on the toe, right? Stepping on the foot is not allowed in freestyle or Greco.
Correct.
And so that's really, it's kind of a safety issue. In Greco, it's clearly a leg foul. You can't step on his foot.
Yeah, obviously.
But really, like, it's funny because that's something that gets taught. Like, it sounds so silly. You're thinking, no, but you can't step on his toe. You also can't attack the toe, especially in like leg lacing mechanics and stuff. You can't be attacking the toe to gain leverage on the rest of the foot. The principle behind that is safety.
Yep.
And we've won some crazy matches in Fargo over, like, he had the toe, and we once I had a kid, he was losing. He lost by tech fall. We bricked and got the whole sequence erased because it started with a toe hold when they did film review. That's a crazy deal. Like, the coaches were pissed. They were so upset. Those nuances change matches in a major way.
It's important to note you can grab the heel of the foot.
You can't
grab the toe.
Yes.
That midsole, the heel is all fair game as long as you're not grabbing the toe.
If you're going to Vegas, to Fargo, even to regionals, these are things that you want to be learning, exploring, and understanding. Don't murder the referee because he doesn't understand the local tournament. We're all learning. That's the whole purpose of this video, is for us to be learning so we can get on the same page. In general, folk style really rewards control, where freestyle and Greco are going to reward exposure, right? So that's kind of the primary scoring mechanism, is exposure.
Yeah, and there's the word we use a lot, is exposure. We call it the E word in Alabama. It's a joke I like to play with my officials. So I taught this rules clinic last year. We have this running joke, kind of like the C word in high school wrestling, is you can't say can't.
Can't say can't.
We can't say exposure. We call it the E word. We do 10 push-ups every time we say it, so I'll get those off the camera. But the reason we don't say the E word is because there's this kind of there's this misunderstanding, I think, that applies all across the country. It's not just an Alabama thing. It's not even just.
It's about danger.
It's about danger, right? So the rulebook term is danger, and it's not just a nitpicky thing. Like, some rulebook terminology doesn't get used. This one I think is actually meaningful because there's a difference in understanding between these two words. So exposure, if you go around to any part of the country, national, local, regional events, whatever, and you'll hear these guys yelling the E word. That's what they want. Yeah. Exposure. And what they mean is, and if you ask anyone to define it, what they'll tell you is that means your back is exposed to the mat beyond 90 degrees. And that's correct. That's what exposure means. But that's not what actually is a scoring action in the rulebook. The rulebook term is danger, which is what we typically think of as exposure. So beyond 90 degrees.
Yeah, danger is not exposure. Exposure could be danger, but it's not. It could be.
Right? Yeah. It's the E word plus an elbow, a shoulder, or a head in contact with the mat. That's what actually scores an action.
Breaking 90 degrees. So folk style is 45-degree angle to near fall. Although I'd like to bring a protractor out a lot of times when we're in matches. I'm like,
consistency is a big thing, but that's theoretical.
It's not. So freestyle is 90 degrees, not 45, and there's no count. It's as soon as you break, it's a score immediately. They're gonna call it like this, not here. Okay, also, and so it's two immediately. But when you break, you need to be, especially in like feet to back stuff, you're looking for them to land not just beyond 90 degrees, but on an elbow, shoulder, head touching.
Yes, exactly. So if you land in a situation where you're beyond 90 degrees to the mat, but you don't have one of those touching, you're still only going to get a regular takedown. That exposure doesn't actually mean anything to the official or to a rules scoring perspective. You'll see this a lot in situations where perhaps a guy hits a blast double and the defending wrestler lands on two outstretched hands. He'll be beyond 90 degrees, but he won't have an elbow, shoulder, or head in contact with the mat, and so you're only going to score two there.
Yes.
And that's a common misunderstanding. We get a lot of bricks, a lot of challenges on that, and guys just lose a point that they don't need to lose. So you have danger, which scores points in, let's say, a gut wrench or a feat to danger situation for 4. So you see a gut wrench, you'll see a guy come over, hit beyond 90 and a shoulder, and you'll score 2. You'll see sometimes in a leg lace situation, you won't actually have danger, but you'll still score 2. And that's, I think, what leads a lot of guys to think that exposure is the leading thing when it's not. So even though you don't have danger, there's a separate rule that allows you to score 2 points again for a turn when you turn the horse up. And so we see a lot of times a guy in a leg lace will roll over his back. He won't hit an elbow, shoulder, or head, so he's not danger. And in a couple cases, you'll see him leaning up
even
towards
forward,
the guy, and he's not even breaking 90. And I think a lot of people if you at least like think
You
about
didn't
it.
expose.
You didn't
like-
expose, right? That I shouldn't have given up 2 there. And the reason you gave up 2 is because of the turn. So you turned your torso in parterre to score 2 points, and that's really where you see the
That's-
hand-to-hand thing come into play.
That's so good, is the clarity that these are 2 nuanced things. Let's continue. While we're kind of talking about myths, there is no touch fall, right?
There's no touch fall.
Let's go through and just hit a couple of these.
Yeah.
So there is no touch fall. The rule is controlled compression.
Correct. So that means the controlled word in there is telling you that there can't be a defensive fall like we see in Folkstyle. So if you want to get a pin, you have to control your opponent. So if the guy's hitting a cradle and he pins himself, so to speak,
Yeah.
you're not controlling him, you're not going to get that fall. The compression is to see indentation into the mat. So it's not just rolling across your back for a turn or a gut wrench or something like that. You have to actually indent into the mat and have compression in the mat.
So when you're gut wrenching the guy
Yeah.
over and your own back hits the mat, and the other coach is yelling, or his parent from behind the rail is yelling that he was pinned.
Yeah, don't listen to it. Yeah.
Don't embarrass yourself by
And
yelling that at a tournament.
Even if you stop there as the offensive wrestler, if the defensive wrestler never does anything to counter you or to control you in that compression, you have no reason to worry about getting pinned yourself. That's not a thing in freestyle.
Okay, and you said that's generally a 1 second hold as an anecdotal understanding of
it's
it.
a general rule for like a spectator. If you're not paying super close attention, it's pretty similar to a 1 second fall.
Yeah. Okay. Another big myth is that we talked about was established post, and so
Yeah.
this is a word that gets used all the time in Greco. That so freestyle is full body, everything else. Greco-Roman is basically roughly the same rules, but you can't grab the legs,
Exactly.
right? Or attack the legs. Can't use your legs for offense
Yep.
or defense, for that matter.
Exactly.
And so established post has been a rule, an interpretation of that for a long time. That hey, this is an established post, and I pull you over my leg, and
Yep.
you fall down. That's actually not allowed
It's
at
not
all.
allowed. That was perpetuated pretty commonly here in Alabama and even in other parts of the country. And you won't hear, you hear established post used around here a lot. I don't hear that nationally, but I do hear that concept idea
Yeah.
nationally, right? Like that I was here, I shouldn't have to move my leg to start an attack. And that's kind of a concept in freestyle, or in Greco, excuse me. The idea, however, is not to allow you to such an extent to not move your leg that you can just use it as an obstacle or use it as part of an attack, right? So the reason we don't, or that referees don't want to force that offensive wrestler to move the leg is to unnecessarily inhibit him from scoring an attack. So in a situation where you're committing to an actual upper body attack, let's say you get to a body lock and you're trying to bring someone up and over your leg to score. The referee doesn't want to hit you for a leg foul if the guy's leg just happened to brush across your leg.
Yep.
So if you lift and you come up and over the leg, and the guy's legs brush across,
Inadvertent is part of the
inadvertent,
action.
Part of the action. Legs
Yeah.
are going to touch. They have to go somewhere, right? You're not going to be able to completely avoid leg contact. That's not the point of a leg foul. The point of a leg foul is, and this is the application that we use to determine a leg foul versus not a leg foul, is whether there was an active use of the legs or touching of the legs,
Meaning he's using his knee, his
Yep.
foot, like, yeah.
or whether there was an advantage gained. So if you'll see this every once in a while with like youth wrestling guy forgets his Greco and he goes, fake shot, tap the leg, and then he goes, oh wait, my bad.
Right, yeah.
And that's not necessarily a leg foul. If I just go boom and go, oh wait, I don't commit to it, I didn't gain the advantage. There was an active touch, but I didn't gain the advantage. That's actually not a leg foul. And the opposite, if a guy doesn't actively use a leg, so let's say he posts his leg in this direction, I might have an advantage in that you can't sidestep over my leg. It's kind of in your way. But I'm not actively using it if I'm bringing it up and over.
So-
Now, if I trip you over it and I use it as an obstacle, that's different.
I love freestyle and Greco because it refines and really forces athletes to develop. You can't have bad habits. The bad habits that you have in folk style will get you beat so quickly in a freestyle Greco match. Okay, a perfect example, I'm winning by 1 and you're coming after me and I shoot in and get on your leg. I can hold onto a leg and stall,
Yep.
right? And just kind of waste time, burn the clock, right?
And we see high-level guys do that all the time.
High-
We lost an Olympic silver, probably even a gold from Aaron Brooks doing that against the Bulgarian.
100%. Hey, close match, you're winning, you shoot it on the leg, and all of a sudden you get counter turned over.
Yep.
And
You see Russians especially are particularly savvy with that. They're just
so good.
they're evil with it.
They call it like counter exposure, right? You can
Yeah.
belly wrap, bundle, all kinds of fun things. We have so much content around teaching freestyle and Greco. It's really where the most development happens, right? And so when you talk to high-level wrestlers, I know I was talking to Bill Bassett about Bo and Jax Force and those guys. Now everyone knows who they are, but before they were phenoms, there was a lot of discussion about moving towards training exclusively freestyle.
Yeah.
And they basically did that with some slight modifications, and you're seeing the fruit of that. Like these guys can flat out wrestle, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a real big push to it. We didn't even take our team to like postseason nationals this year for Folkstyle because everybody is so pushing freestyle Greco, and that's all they want to do. So
it's a huge push right now all across the country. You see guys not just like Bassett and
Yeah.
Sports. You see the guys like Marcus Blaze who are really committed to freestyle training, and you see massive fruits of that. Like you see Marcus Blaze going out and beating 3 NCAA finalists in a day.
in a day, bananas, right?
Just ridiculous stuff that we've never seen before.
And the rule set for Folkstyle is starting to has moved that way, right? I mean, I think the rule set for Folkstyle right now is as fun and exciting as it's ever been.
It is.
But it looks increasingly like freestyle. That's the change that you're seeing, is they're mimicking freestyle.
And I don't think we're done moving in that direction. I mean, you see a big push right now for a Folkstyle push-out point.
Yes.
Which is, you see guys like Christian Piles and Flow Wrestling pushing out hard. You see other things like ground wrestling getting attacked from freestyle advocates. I'm not sure that will ever go away.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that it should, but you see a lot of guys pushing for that to move more towards the freestyle-like product.
I realize this can all be a lot. I hope you've gained a lot from today's conversation. Don't be intimidated if you don't understand it all. We're going to try to put a link in the description for you to pick up some of the notes that we have today and the notes that we like to use with our athletes. We want to make that stuff available for you. If you want some help with your training, we have content like this every week. There's all kinds of free stuff that we have on our channel. Go check it out. But I would 10 out of 10 recommend our Greco-Roman Decoded course. That's amazing. We have that available on Ironclad Methods. We're going to keep making that stuff for you. Again, hit that subscribe button, check it out, and let us know what you think about it. If there's something that we're missing, please let us know in the comments. Interact with us so we can help build this community and we can create the next piece of content and have that discussion that needs to happen in terms of wrestling, okay? We love you guys. Y'all the best. We'll see you on the other side.